All right. Good morning. Time is 05:36, meaning this is Saturday morning in the Kingdom of Sweden. East Quebec. Everybody's wondering what's the topic today, and I'm just gonna tell you quickly because it's gonna be a proper clip where I present all of the topics today. I'm just gonna mention here the general idea. All right. Do you remember the introduction I did yesterday? Yeah, yeah, that's right. We were talking about import games for the Sega Saturn. This, in fact, is the first is the first import game I actually got. Um, well, so that's one of them. I'm going to talk about that. It's really Wombat. You see, Wombat is a unique game for Sega Saturn. It was never released on any other platform, and there's never been a follow up either. And thinking about that is a really interesting. It's a 3D platformer, isometric platformer, I think call it. I don't know what that means. It's just a terminology they use for it to sound fancy, I think. Isometric platformer. And then there is well, it's got lots of puzzle elements, as I understand. You have to find your way. Some obstacles are there. You pick up things on the way. Actually looks a lot like Sonic 3D if you wonder what it looks like, and the idea it's kind of similar. Um, I will talk about that later, as you say. But this is a Japanese import. This is a Japanese import. It's an import port of the Master System Game Gear title, Fantasy Zone. Shoot 'em up, whatever. And this is columns arcade, which is actually 4 different games on one disc. So it's a very you get a lot of bang for the buck, and it's a valuable purchase because you can see variations of this game in many different ways. And then we have one of the more expensive titles, but one of the most impressive games in the entire Saturn catalog. It's Dracula X. And Dracula X is interesting because this is a Saturn version where there are secret rooms and hidden content, which is official only on the Saturn version and only able to access. Even if you had the equivalent for a Game Shark on PlayStation or a PlayStation Portable, it wouldn't matter because some of the hidden secrets in this game is only available on the Sega Saturn version. And this is an import actually because it was released as one of the last games for Sega Saturn in Japan in about 1998. The thing is only that you would think, being a Saturn title, well, you wouldn't think. I mean, there could have been two ideas. Either it would be Sega Saturn using one of the processors to generate 3D graphics, but and that would have been most expected in a year like 1998. But this is actually a hand-drawn game, which is a 2D game. It looks like a side scroller, but it's not straightforward in the gameplay. There are arcade-like modes where but if you play like one of the guys, the Alucard version of the game, you get to pick up things. You have these exploring elements. You have the adventure elements, even RPG elements related to it is included here because you have to pick up certain items and use them at the right time, and then you develop as a person in during the game, and you learn to do new things. This is Dracula X I think it's the most expensive game you can ever find on a Sega Saturn, but it's also one of the absolute best games you can find on a Sega Saturn. So I recommend it, but only for the people who are ready for it and are prepared to wait for it. If they order it, it will take a while for a shop to get it from Japan because it's only released in Japan, and you have to be patient and you have to allocate funds for it. And you have to think it's worthwhile to sit down and actually play it for a long time, learning it bit by bit because it's a massive game, yeah. And then we had, as I talked about yesterday, we have a more classic, classic game, classic arcade game that used to be its own machine back in the day in 1976. It's Space Invaders. You only use two or three buttons when you play this game, but it's a really good game and it's easy to get into. It was released, as I said, in 1976, but this version, the Sega Saturn version, Japanese Sega Saturn version, it was released in 1996. So that's somewhat of a difference, but it's very close to the arcade original as I take it. I haven't played it on the arcade machine, but I've played the actual, DOS-based version for this game. It's the color setting in the background that's a bit different, but the gameplay is exactly the same. That's a good port. I mean, a port that lives up to the traditional expectation, but it also has, extra backgrounds, three different backgrounds that you can use when you play it. And it's one hit and you're dead, so you have to stay behind the shield sometimes and move out in a strategic way when you are ready to shoot. But you have to be careful. This is why it's such a good game because, well, it's easy to lose, but it's also easy to get into to play. So you love to come back to it every now and again, and it's not as it's an undemanding game to play. I mean, as a gaming experience, it's one of the best, but you also is one of the easiest ones to get into. It is difficult, but naturally that's something that's worth it when you think about it. Because it's a good game, and it's also only an import. It's a Japanese import again. As I remember, I got it, I think, from eBay. Um, I mean the equivalent of the Swedish currency that we have here. In pound sterling, which is a much more internationally known currency. I think it's about 10 quid actually, something like that. 10 quid, 9 quid, something like that. And then, there are import costs sometimes, so you have to pay for that and the handling fee, and then it's the currency changing fee, which has gone up recently. Anyway, that is all the Japanese games I have, and I will talk about them. And I will talk about them a little bit more later on, but we also have to discuss what is in store today for us in terms of record of the day. I mean, recording of the day, and it's this release. I used to have it on CD too, but I lost it at work. It's this release. It's Yusuf Islam, um, Prayers of the Last Prophet, um, Prayers of the Last Prophet, with three new songs. This is over here, three new songs. I used to have it on a CD too, but I lost it at work. This is a cassette tape with a very down to earth, mild tone, sound wise, and it's also available here as a hardcover book. I think actually, if you want, if to be honest with you, I have most of the Yusuf Islam releases from Mountain of Light. Uh, Mountain of Light was a good foundation. I mean, it's a good foundation because it's it focuses on, you know teaching people about spiritual issues, questions they have about spiritual living and lifestyle. And Prayers of the Last Prophet, I think, of all the releases you can get from Yusuf Islam, this is the one to get if you only get one. Then this is the one to get because it's a heartwarming quality built into this album. It's a concept album. It narrates a story from dawn to dusk, um, supplications and prayers and narrations that fit the whole idea, that fit in speaking of the whole idea to present um, spiritual content that is useful in all these sections of the day. And then again, it's also interesting because being very focused on a rustic or homegrown quality of production with very modest means, it's an emotive spoken word release for the most part, but there are also three hymns of praise uh, that are said. One of them is in the beginning of the album. There's one in the middle of the album, and then one is the final track on the album is one of those as well. And I think, with that setup, with the delicate production and very, the gentle nature of this release, three songs is just enough, and it's sufficient to make things work. And it doesn't ruin the delicate and beautiful atmosphere that was chosen for major of the part, which is emotive spoken word, as I said. But the songs of praise are also worthwhile in a way that I mean, it was recorded without instruments actually on this tape. It was released in 1998, and there is one track that has instruments on it, but it's Yusuf playing a drum to have a prominent rhythm to go with the message. It doesn't ruin the message. It just uh, you know, uh, gives it something to stand on to get into the actual to receive the message in a better way. I think it's good to do a cappella as well, but this actual track, Sali Allah Muhammad, is a praise song of praise which is composed by Yusuf himself, and it's the only one on the tape which is composed by Yusuf himself, because the other titles are in Salto, or as they say in English, if you ask me. And if you ask me, is translated from Arabic to English by Yusuf, but he did not compose it. And then it's Rabia Rahman, which is more traditional. All right, so this is what it says on the back. Prayers of the Last Prophet is the follow-up to the largely successful The Life of the Last Prophet. Do you remember that release? Then, if you do, it was released in 1995 and contains du'as, supplications, as used by the Prophet Muhammad and narrated by Yusuf Islam. All right, narrated by Yusuf Islam. It's centered around, I think it's centered around phases of the day that range from everyday activities and working phases of the day. Well, it was difficult to read what it says because it's very dark in here, and I mean, the type font here is very tiny. Anyway, I wanted to show you the CD because then you can skip tracks if you want on the CD. Obviously, you can do that on tape, but this is what the hardback cover looks like. And if you want to see the inside, I will show it to you. It looks like this anyway, and there's some text explaining uh, the content of what is actually on the tape. But I will show you. This is the first page you notice when you look into it. This is the first page of the Last Prophet by Yusuf Islam. This was also published by Mountain of Light, as it says here. And we have the introduction contents in a section into prayers, night, dawn, day, and evening. This is why it's so good, because it functions with the phases of the day actually what you do as a person, not only in terms of worship, but I mean, it takes up issues such as leaving home, traveling prayers, visiting the sick, the mourning, yeah, things like that, prostration, and even the ways of the weather in a narration called Water, Ice, and Snow. There is a lot of things offered here in a very gentle and undemanding way. And if you really want to experience something in self-production, how it's done with quality and modest means, I think um, Prayers of the Last Prophet is not only Yusuf Islam's best effort, but it's one of the best home recorded concept albums I have ever listened to, because it keeps in line with the topic all the time, and you actually feel that you're in an atmosphere when all these things they are narrating to you are actually happening. So this is why it's very worthwhile. And you see, this is his introduction here, and then there is this introduction is not part of the cassette. It's in the introduction before it starts. And this book was actually, when it was published, you had the right to choose either if you wanted the cassette tape or the compact disc record, which I used to have. I actually got that compact disc record when I was hospitalized for a long time from my auntie. So it's a pity that it's gone, because it was for my auntie when I was on the sick list and taken into hospital. It would have been nice to get that release back, because I have so many memories and affectionate feelings related to it. All right, uh, very much so. But it's gone. We took it to work. I took it to work one day and went into the library, and we left it there, and now it's gone. The thing is that you need to think about listening to Yusuf Islam is that he's probably famous for the schools that he started, uh, and the educational approach that he choose for his most of his releases. And but this is the best, definitely, if you're only going to get one. It's his masterpiece, because it's so perfectly put. Nothing is exaggerated here. Nothing is over the top. Nothing is superficial. It's a genuinely great recording. And when you see the sticker there saying with 3 new songs, first you wonder if you're supposed to be disappointed by that, the fact that it's only 3 new songs when there are so many spoken word tracks. But no, no, no. You see, these 3 songs, as I said, are put for one in the beginning of the album, one in the middle of the album, and one in the end of the album. It's just enough. You don't need to add more. You don't have to take away anything. More or less, it works as a perfect album. And there are many cool, good tracks. The favorite ones that I have is a recording called 21,000 Angels. Or what was it again? Was it 20? I will have a look at that. 21,000 of Angels. I think it's something like that. I will have a look at that. If it's 22, if it's 21, I think it's 21. Wait, I'll just look into it, so you know, because I don't want to fool you, because I never lie. So it could be my mistake, but who knows? 21,000 Angels. Let's see if I can find it. Can I? Um, let's see if it's. Here's the prayers in English and in Arabic. But is it transliterated? No, that's somewhat of a miss, because the transliteration would be great. Um, Rabbi Rahman is a different tune, but there are more than one tune here. It's, I mean, and I mean, this most of those. This is a part of the Quran, but I was thinking, um, where in the book, the 2021. I'll get to that. I'll get back to that I if I actually the rivalry of world in increase that is taken from the Quran, directly from the Quran, and it's one of the best surahs. I mean, the best subjects you can get, which is on worldly gain and a deeper meaning in life. That has nothing to do with what you can value in money. It's a different it's a different setup and what this is if you ask me that one is famous as well. I mean this is what I said about what I said about what I said about the thing with having three songs like that only and that's the three songs they had means that you need to put lots of sincerity into there is a it's a bloody shame that people don't understand the true nature of recordings like this, that they are actually worthwhile even they have chosen to make it as a organization. A goodwill organization is not really a commercial. It's not really a commercial. It's not really a commercial release. And I am going to show you my favorite tune. I mean, sorry, favorite track from this release because I used to have it on a CD. So I think I have a what do you call it? A MP3 of one of these tracks since before when I used MP3s a lot more. I don't do that anymore. You see? And then we'll see if it works now because the microphone is built into the computer. And as you see, I have no camera here. It's also built into the computer. It's a laptop that, in general terms, works for the any basic need that you may have, but it's not really a thing for professionals because I mean you need to take that into account. It's not a thing for professionals who wants to be able to the setting of the light, the zooming, the picture framing. There are many features that professional photographers would not even. I mean, they wouldn't even bother using one of those, even if they had one of them. But that has to do with. It depends on what you want. What you want the camera for. To be honest with you, it's worthwhile in many ways to have one of those fancy cams, but you can learn also if you're not that good into editing and things like I mean I would have liked to be better in editing, but I'm not. Like if you're only going to record footage and moving footage, then this built-in thing was the best. And actually, I didn't expect that much of a Windows platform, but the actual software that I found just by typing down the word camera or camera in Swedish, it opened the gate to a very good piece of software that works in the general sense that you can film things. There's no problem with the sound being out of sync with the movement of how you when you try to read my lips. there's no problem there. The problem with this version is, I think, that it takes quite a while to upload the files because you get them bigger in size and there really isn't much to choose from when you get to when you get into wanting to convert it to a different, slicker, leaner kind of a format that will take less time to upload. But then again, if you like quality recording and you think it's worth the wait, you shouldn't really. There's no reason for you to worry about those things. And I am really no man. This is a file with my favorite 60s albums collection, volume one. That wasn't exactly what I was looking for. If you just hold on for a minute, I'll see if I have the Yusuf track here because it would have been really good to say for you to see. Oh, say, can you see? Wait. Right, so I found three different USB flashes. None of them are flashy, but they do what they're supposed to do. I don't know what they call it, flashy or anything. I will prove that this is just. I think this is the best track. Maybe it's like Yusuf Islam has recorded loads of material really during the early Cat Stevens phase in the 60s and 70s. He recorded many albums and singles. Yeah, as Cat Stevens. And then he became religious in 1977 and changed his name from Stephen to Yusuf. And from there on, he was becoming a parent. He wanted to care about children's education. He only wanted to care about being a good parent. His father was dying at the time, and he just left the commercial music business for the time and didn't return until doing commercial releases until in 2006. So what does this offer for us in comparison to his, commercial-like releases and some of those releases that blend the spiritual dimensions of recordings and the commercial recordings, and then there's these traditional or educational releases. These are educational releases. It's from Mountain of Light. It's the only purpose of Mountain of Light is to being able to write about special issues that people generally are wondering about, and what they are wondering about a basis. And I was gonna pick out one track for you only, but I think the whole set with all the tracks from beginning to end is of course a better experience. Speaking in terms that you can listen to it once and you will never really like forget anything of what you want to expect from Joseph. This is the best thing you can get when expectations remain high, and when you are done, uh, you feel that it is really, really, really It's really working. It's really working, and it's worth it in a way which it goes beyond compared to any of his other releases. I mean, he's done more as the Life of the Last Prophet. He produced that one as the first release he did. It focuses on some events of the last prophet's life in a sense that it gives a general introduction about his life and his way of life and what he did while he was alive. And then we have the follow-up. It's Prayers of the Last Prophet. We have the Prophetic Art of Communication from 1999, my favorite year in music. And then we have A is for Allah, which is a double set that actually came also with a book, 2 tapes, or 2 CDs. It's an instrument of pedagogy where it in a playful way tries to teach children how the Arabic alphabet works. And does it succeed? Yes, it does. But it's not the topic of today. Today's recording we're listening to is Prayers of the best release he ever did. I mean, this is the guy who started recording when he was 16, 16, 7. He was 16 or 71, right? So this is the thing I was talking about. 70,000 angels. Track 21, 70,000 angels. I will try to see if you can hear what it says if I put the volume up a bit. Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya. All right, so that is I mean, the chain of authority there comes from Ali ibn Abu Talib, the first apostolic imam, and he was the son-in-law of the last prophet. And when you mention last prophet, it's all too natural to go about thinking about him and what he has done for the world. And we always do it by saying, well, we hope that we hope that God will continue to bless him and his progeny in a way so that people all over the world, no matter of social status or where they came from, to begin with, it doesn't matter. You just see that They can give us people like uh, Ali ibn Abu Talib and the last prophet. They can give us so much wisdom that some people are not willing to believe that a normal human brain can master that, handle that. But you must not forget that when we say this within the Shia society, even within the Sunni society, Sufi society, um, even the Christians say, the Jews say that I mean your soul that you have is a great asset, if not the greatest asset. Spiritual needs that you have in your life is the priority number one as we see it. I'm not saying you have to agree, but if you spend some time listening to this production by Yusuf Islam, or maybe reading the book and listening to the CD or the tape, or you just listen to the tape, listen to the CD, both of them, or you just read the book, who knows? The thing is, I tell you, because of the sincerity of purpose in this recording, it doesn't really fit in with all of the thoughts about gameplay. And but then again, you should not think as if um, there is uh, um, there is no time for enjoyment when you're spiritual. Again, Imam Ali ibn Abu Talib has said, amuse yourself for some time. And when saying that, he also meant that for too much strain makes hearts go blind. And that is, I don't know if I put that in front of you word for word, but that's one of the most famous hadiths people should be looking for to know what is the thing with relaxing, thinking, contemplating. Are we talking about these messages, listening or reading? Are we talking that they divert the attention to do what is asked of you as a believer, to pray, to recite, to help other people? Does listening to something that amuses you for a while, or read something that amuses you, does that round counter to the culture that says you need to be spiritual? Well, of course, many people have been discussing this back and forth, and there are many points that say that it's only a trifle matter, you waste your life away if you do so and so. But then think about Yusuf Islam. For the greatest part of his life, before he decided to start a school and make records with pedagogy elements to it for children, and put his children into a good education as well as for other children. This means he was a musician for the greater part of his life, and now he's sometimes if it's somehow it's like his half time back into it every now and then. Every now and then, yeah, because he's getting older now, of course. And when one is getting older, one doesn't record as much. But I still at Reggie Music as I am a I am, I'm very much into writing reviews on RachelMusic.com, and I saw this release was in 1998, as I said, the second release on Mountain of Light. But then there is a more commercial release that was released 2017 called The Laughing Apple. I'm not really sure if I'm interested in that title, because nothing is better than this according to me, because I have no canons at all. I have Bismillah. I have Live at Royal Albert Hall. I have I have many of them recording, some of them on tape, some of them on CD, some of them on tape and CD, and then this release had on CD, tape, and book published. So it saddened me that I can't show you today how you listen to each section of the recording and flip through the pages at the same time to follow the text in English or in Arabic. The only negative I would like to put out here is that there are two things. First off, the booklet or book should have had transliteration for the Arabic phases of the book, because there is English in there, but there is also Arabic only. Sometimes, as when one supplication is called light, illuminate with light, that one is in Arabic to start with, but after the person who recites has come to an end, to the point where he stops and becomes totally quiet. Then we have Yusuf Islam reading an English interpretation of the same subject. Really nice, actually. I would like to have been able to play it for you, because the best tracks on this presentation, apart from what I said, 70,000 angels reported from Imam Ali. We have peace be peace be upon him, because I would love to see that all people worldwide would learn from his knowledge and the meaning of these words. Not only those words, but I mean, he said a lot. He said a lot of things. He was, you know, one of those traditional ascetics also, so he didn't really care much for the world. He said that power, all the power in the world that one can get in this world, means less to me than the sneeze of a goat in my hand. Imam Ali was a very special person, and there weren't really many people like him. This is why you only get a snippet of what he was saying here. But in that spectrum of sound, the delicate nature of where you find yourself when you have listened to this tape, it comes not in the very end of the tape, but further down the road, so to speak. And as you heard earlier, it fades. I mean, it fades into the the situation that says this is what to do when you're visiting the sick, because there's a different thing between keeping your promise to a person and keeping your promise to God. But then there is also a special and a very delicate balance in a promise that you must keep if you give a promise to the sick. Anyway, I could be talking about this all the time, and you will go and all day, and you would think that this has nothing to do with the bloody gaming feature I was gearing into. No, sometimes I talk about games. Most of the times here I talk about games, but I have many other different interests. But you would be really foolish if you would think that me working within the clergy in the Shia society would not affect what I talk about in the clips. Either you accept this dimension of it, the spiritual dimension of it, or you leave it, or maybe you can only watch the clips only that are about more mundane issues. It depends on you. You can decide. I won't be the one deciding for you what to do, and you don't have to be a part of the congregation to hear me speak. The Shia society is quite big, but it's a minority in Sweden. So that said, with everything, that's what I wanted to uh, comment on right now. I will try to talk about all the games I mentioned here, but the video is getting too long and we're going out of topic soon. And to get back and like explain all this games for you right now. But I mean, it's not mandatory for you to leave, but for me to start talking as something completely different when we have been discussing been, been discussing spiritual recordings here. It just doesn't fit in. I have to make another video where I take enough time for each of the import games and talk about all of them because I didn't talk about all of them. And what and as long as the games likened to the arcade that was released for 32X, I will perhaps go into it later today, and if not today, then tomorrow. All right. And remember, this is only what I think. You don't have to agree with with everything.